Ramanujan's self-portrait describes the struggle for identity of a modern man. The first line implies that the speaker is similar to everyone in this world, including those he knows, those he does not know, those he wishes to be compared with, and those he does not wish to be compared with. The poet only sees other people in himself. His own identity seems to have faded or been lost somewhere. This is evident from the line in which the poet states, I resemble everyone but myself. His own identity appears to have lost its meaning. Ramanujan's self appears to be temporary to himself, just as his portrait appears to be temporary. The expression sometimes see is a clear indication that the poet is hesitant to create his own identity in this world. He seems to be frightened of developing a sense of self that is no longer relevant to him. Generally, one sees a reflection of oneself in a mirror, which multiplies as one walks or looks past a number of mirrors. Despite seeing his own reflection in various shop windows, the poet rather sees the portrait of a stranger. Although he attempts hard to recognize the individual being depicted, he is unable to do so. The stranger does not resemble him, nor does his father. He was fooled by the circumstances, and his own lack of focus was reflected in the mirrors of the windows. Despite the well known laws of optics, he is not able to relate to that reflection. He suffers from an identity crisis that leaves even his reflection without any identity. Even his reflection does not appear to resemble anyone except himself. A series of questions begin to rattle his mind so much that he begins to doubt his own identity. He seems to be in a constant dilemma. Both the past and present events force him to think, consider his individuality. When examining the portrait closely, the poet notices that it lacks a date. It is generally expected that the artist will sign a portrait in order to know the date and period of its creation. But this portrait of a stranger lacks a date. This further added to the poet's confusion. Throughout the poem, the poet emphasizes that we need to create our own identity. Today's world is experiencing a crisis of identity. We are more concerned about copying others than creating our own identity. In today's society, we tend to forget that each of us has a unique personality and we need to make adequate efforts to cultivate that personality. Creating our own individuality is essential. However, we should never forget where we came from while striving to create a perfect image of ourselves. Our past must be taken into consideration in order to achieve a perfect balance between where we started and where we are today. It cannot be denied that our past is responsible for our present. So we must take care of it. In order to develop a perfect identity for ourselves, we must consider our past and our present simultaneously.